Hello, my name is Korbinian Schreiber, a strange Bavarian name. Feel free to call me simply Corby. And I'm also a PhD student at the University of Heidelberg. And most of the time I do hardware development, but today I want to tell you something about an accelerated robotics platform that we want to develop especially for our accelerated hardware. So to understand what it means to build a robot for an accelerated neuromorphic system, I want to first illustrate what it means to have a speed up, in this case a 1000-fold speed up. And what you see here is a series of pictures that show a fly which is confronted with a fly swatter at the time t equals 0. And it first spots the direction from which the fly swatter approaches it, and then it takes off. And this process takes approximately 300 milliseconds, which is already quite fast. If you would have a neuromorphic fly made in Heidelberg, which unfortunately doesn't exist yet, but if you would have it, this fly would be able to take off 10 times and to spot 10 objects in the time during which a normal fly flaps its wings once. So between the last two pictures here, it would take off 5 times. Another thing a neuromorphic fly could do is to smile at you approximately 3 times, while a normal fly flaps its wings once. And this is, of course, a stupid example because a fly cannot smile. But I'm telling you this to illustrate also what it means to live in a slow world like ours when you are a neuromorphic agent that is that fast. And now consider me, and I smile at you for approximately 1 second, and that is kind of convenient. But if you were indeed an accelerated neuromorphic audience, also engineered in Heidelberg, it would appear to you as 17 minutes. So if you want to smile back at me, it would take you 3 minutes smiling, and then I would be able to recognize that you smiled. So this is a disaster, and you might become depressed, and maybe you tend to suicide, and we have to do something about this. So the concept we have here is the playpen, that's what it's called, and you see a usual computer screen in the back, and you have a sensor head that can move across this screen. So the sensor information that is sampled on the screen is fed to the HiCAN DLS, in this case, the neuromorphic platform, and the platform is also able to control the motors. So what the system would see is something like this. You have some screen content and some receptive field that moves fastly across the screen. And this signal is captured by a photodiode that has to be first preamplified by a logarithmic preamplifier already on the sensor head, then somehow digitized or analogically turned into spikes, and then it reaches the hardware. On the other side, the hardware can only produce spikes, of course, and these spikes have to be translated into motor signals. So a question might be if this is biologically relevant at all, and if you look, for example, at a human eye, you see that the retina is composed of millions of cells that are closely packed together, and so it's a very complex and detailed structure. On the other hand, you see the temporal response. The gray background indicates that a signal is presented, and the black thing indicates the spike response of a single neuron that is tied to these cells. And there are some neurons that fire sustained, and some of them fire transiently. And now the question is how we can bring that to the playpen. So the sensor structure is quite limited because, first of all, it needs to be lightweight, so we can move it fastly. And also we have to transfer the data somehow to the hardware, and this is also something that has to be really fast. So possible sensor structures would only look like this, so maybe you would have one photodiode, or maybe some of them, which would already allow you to at least detect some gradients. The dynamic aspects, on the other hand, can be modeled quite easily because you can easily implement temporal filters and stuff either in digital logic in an FPGA, or you can build custom analog circuits that do this. The spatial gradients, on the other hand, I already talked about that, are quite limited, but you can resolve gradients, and that is already something. But the detailed structure, so what the network actually sees on the screen, has to be somehow interpreted by the network. So the question is, what kind of experiments would you do with such a platform? And I already said I only suggest a few of them. You could, for example, this is the screen content. You could, for example, simply depict a well potential or so and train the network to stay within this potential. You could also, for example, make some gradient maps and train it to find the minimum. You could let it race a raceway and train it to do it as fast as possible. Maybe it could even follow an object. Or you could present it with some complex input and just see how it performs. So the Playpen is a platform that is especially focused on trying to find learning algorithms for small networks. On the HiCAN DLS, as Sebastian already told you in the morning speeches, we have a plasticity processing unit, which is a general processing unit that can detect correlations between pre- and post-synaptic spike events, and it can also touch the synaptic weights. It's a universal processing unit, so you can basically implement any type of learning rule you want. And if you have any questions, please visit me at my poster, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Thank you.